Evolutionary or podcast coming your way. Episode 449 Q&A. Stevesmi here and the Rickster, Ricky V. Rock. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
All right, so we got four really good topics, guys. We're going to spend some good time on each of them. We're going to kind of debate them back and forth. The first one is how long do you need to run a long ester minimum? And basically the question is, let's say you're running testosterone cypionate or primobolan or equipoise or anything with a longer ester attached, a half-life of at least 8, 10, 12, 15 days, decadurabolins at 15 days. So how long do you need to run one of those long esters to, get the, basically start getting an effect? So the way half-lives work, really, really simple. Let's use decadurabolin, for example, 15-day half-life. So with decadurabolin, if I was to inject it today, 15 days from now, half of what I injected would still be in my system. Then 15 more days, half of that remaining will be in my system. Then 15 more days, half of that remaining will be in my system. So it drops off very, very slowly. If I inject the decadurabolin twice in a week, so let's say let's make it easy. I do 500 milligrams today. I do another 500 milligrams 4 days from now. So that's 2 injections within 4 days. So I'm getting 1,000 milligrams in my system if I'm doing 500 milligrams each. So that would mean 15 days from that first injection, half of that 500 milligram will be in there. And then 19 days from today, half of that second injection will be in there. So it's dropping off really slowly. So the more I inject into my system, the more it's going to build up in my system. So if you were to inject twice a week for the next 5 weeks, that's when you would start getting close to peak in your system. Because remember, these half-lives and these esters are attached to these steroids. So what happens is, as you inject, more and more gets in your system, even though some are dropping out of your system at the same over time, some are dropping out of your system, but it's not dropping off fast enough versus what you're putting in. So eventually, though, you'll hit a peak number, and then the amount that you're injecting in, assuming you keep the dosage the same and you don't adjust the dosage higher, the same amount that's basically in your system will be also leaving your system as you inject, as you go along. Does that make sense? It's going to hit a peak. So I always say 4 or 5 times the half-life. So with decadurabolin, 15 times 4, 15 times 5. That's a lot of days that it would take to reach peak. We're talking 2.5 months in some cases. 2 months, about 2 months, so 8 weeks till decadurabolin reaches peak in your system. That's a long time. So if you were to only run decadurabolin for 4 or 5 weeks, you would never even get close to peak levels in your system. So yes, it would be pointless to run a long ester that short for that reason. Now, you would still get effects because as soon as you put it in your system, within minutes, it's in your system, but it's not going to be at those peak levels. So now on the flip side, in case you're wondering, let's say you stop injecting, you run it for 10 weeks, 15 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever, and then you stop injecting. Is it out of your system the next day? Of course not. That's as absurd as saying that it's in your system the same day or the next day that you inject it. Yes, there's some in your system. On the flip side, when you stop taking it, it's not out of your system like magic the next day or a week later or even a month later. That's why if you ever run a long ester steroid, you notice after your last injection, you keep making, sometimes you'll keep making results. You'll feel the hormone in your system longer, and then you'll crash. Let's say you're not running a PCT and you just go ahead and wing it. You'll crash after 6 to 8 weeks and you'll feel like crap. Well, that's why you don't feel like crap literally the next day after you stop injecting. Because again, it's in your system at a peak amount and you stop taking it. So it's got to kind of drop off out of your system. So the way I kind of explain it is, imagine you've got a house and you've got a little hole and there's rats in the house and a fire starts in the house. So all the rats are scurrying through that hole. That's the way esters work with steroids, with these anabolic steroids that do have esters attached. Now, if we're talking about a steroid that doesn't have esters attached, the issue isn't, has nothing to do with it. You see what I'm saying? But, so you got to imagine the rats are leaving that hole. They're not going to leave that hole all at one time. They're going to one at a time go through that hole. So it's going to slowly come out of your system. So it's not in your system overnight and it's not out of your system overnight. So if you're running a long ester, you really should push it at least 10, 12 weeks. If you're running one of these super long esters like decadurabolin, if you're running something like cypionate or enanthate, which are 10 or 12 weeks, then you can, 10 or 12 day half-lives, then you can run it, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Okay. And you'll have somewhat amounts and, peak in your system to be able to take full advantage of it. So, I mean, it really is silly to run decadurabolin, for example, for 4 weeks, because you're not even going to reach peak levels. And then when you stop taking it, it's still going to be in your system for another 8 weeks. So at low levels. So you never took advantage of it and it's still in your system. So you're not going to recover any quicker than someone who runs it the correct amount necessarily, because it's still going to be in your system for that long a time. You're not going to recover from anabolic steroids until it's completely out of your system. So there isn't some, magic. So if you insist on short cycles, 4-6 week cycles, you should run either orals or you should run really, really short esters. Like testosterone propionate, for example, because testosterone propionate would peak in your system after about a week and a half. So if you run it for only 6 weeks, it's going to be in your system peaking for like about 4 weeks out of that. So, I mean, I hope I explained it correctly. I mean, Rick, you're listening to me. I probably, maybe I confused some people. Maybe you can follow up and explain it.
Well, I don't fully agree that you have to run the longer ester steroids that long. So what I'll do is I'll give you guys a good different case use scenario for using those long esters. Let's say you are out of the country for a couple of weeks. You have a business trip, pleasure, whatever it is. Out of the country, you can pretty easy at most pharmacies grab yourself a bottle of Nebido or 2, which is testosterone on decanoate. And you can also grab yourself a bottle of Ganabol 50, which is equipoise. And a good way to run a really cool little short blast with a approved veterinarian and approved human grade steroid is you take that Ganabol and you take that that Nebido, is what it's called, is Nebido by Bayer. It's a multi-dose vial, 4 cc's at 250 milligrams of testosterone decanoate, total 1 gram of testosterone in that little bottle. And you could just do like 1 cc or 2 cc's of the Ganabol, 1 cc of the test every day or every other day. Make sure to create a different depot each time, because every time you create a new depot, you're setting a timer on that depot. So as you do this, let's say you do every other day or you do every day. Let's say you get a good almost 2 to 3 grams of steroids in your system that are now going to slow release. Obviously, they'll peak and then they'll drop pretty quickly. But you actually have a few good weeks of some actual good anabolism going on, some good growth. And you lay down these depots on your 2 to 3 week trip, whatever it is. Do the math, see how many cc's you want to shoot each day. I think 2 to 3 cc's per day. You do one glute on one side, then shoulder, then other glute, then shoulder again, maybe a bicep, and just switch it around until you create all these little different depots. And then you got to go back home, right? You leave the country, go back home. Then when you get home, you could jump on your and to generate along with Clomid, along with whatever else you've already figured out is a good PCT for you. And it's a good, easy way to use long esters to give yourself a little push, little anabolic push, a little anabolic blast. And those hormones will make a difference. Yeah. Long half-life. Yeah, they'll raise levels. I mean, by the time you're a week from getting home, you should have in your system to what, 3 times, almost 4 times the androgens your body could produce naturally, ready to work, ready to go to work. And the reason for setting up a depot every day and not just shooting, a big chunk at once is you deposit the depots, they're going to slow release. So each day, each different depot is going to take a couple of weeks to reach its half-life. So it creates a nice smooth curve up and a nice smooth curve down as far as your androgen levels go. That's just a good, easy way for you guys out there that maybe travel here and there or get to leave the country for either business or pleasure, and you only have a couple of weeks, a week or two in some location where steroids are plentiful and cheap, plentiful and cheap. And you could just utilize that time to load up on real cheap human grade gear, which is kind of the appeal of this whole thing is like, okay, so I left the country, I went to Mexico or Dominican Republic or wherever you went, Asia, wherever you went. If you grab yourself some human grade libido, which is testosterone decanoate, and you grab yourself, or some sustanon even, but I would go with libido definitely, and grab yourself some Ganabol, so some good human grade stuff, some hot human grade stuff it's real cheap out of the country because you're not paying the black market tax. Every time we guys grab stuff locally inside of the country, you're paying extra. You're paying maybe 4 times what someone in Thailand or in Costa Rica would be paying for better quality human grade product. And so it's just a good, easy way. But the trick is not to take those 4 cc's of libido and pump them in one shot, because then that's all going to peak and drop at the same time. Those whole 4 of those cc's. Now you do one shot every day or every other day, depending on how hot you want to get with it and how much you want to actually do. You do one a day, one every other day, and you lay all those depots down. And by the time you go back home, you might have, 10, 15 small depots where you shot your sauce that are kind of slow releasing. It'll be a nice smooth up and smooth down. And then as soon as you get home, just start PCTing right away. Is that like the perfect, most ideal cycle? No, it's not. It's just a good way to take advantage of an overseas trip and long esters and blasting a little bit, giving yourself I'd say a good month and a half, almost 2 months of some expedited, accelerated growth that you normally wouldn't have if you hadn't shot it that way. So that's actually a nice kind of cool way to use long ester steroids. I like longer ester steroids. I really do, because I've always felt as though I got less side effects when my levels stay pretty consistent. Usually when I do orals or when I shoot those shorter esters where my levels are up and down, I feel like I get the most side effects then. But those nice long esters, man, those are always there. So even if you're doing an oral or even if you're doing a short ester, along with a longer ester, even if your levels drop, let's say you're doing test prop with trenbolone acetate with equipoise, right? Well, as your levels begin to drop when you're right where you come up right up next to your next shot of acetate or the next shot of propionate, as your levels drop, you got the EQ there that's kind of picking you up. And I've enjoyed using long esters along with my shorter esters and orals. It's just always been a good practice. But for you guys out there trying to figure out a nice little way to just do a nice cycle, let's say you got 2 weeks out of the country and you're going somewhere where steroids are cheap and plentiful and legit. Bump those long esters, maybe run an oral those 2 weeks. Just don't be an idiot. Don't go drinking and partying and shit like that. I mean, when you're out of the country, you're out of your element. You probably should watch yourself more than when you are back home, right? So don't go out drinking and being a fool. Grab yourself nice oral steroids, long esters, and pump those fucking things. And then by the time you get home, obviously don't bring anything back because you get caught at the airport. It'd be way more trouble than it's worth. But when you get home, you've got, I mean, depending on how much you pump, you've got a few weeks of some serious augmented, accelerated growth. You're gonna be synthesizing more protein. You'll be getting bigger. Whether it takes 3-4 weeks for it to release in your system, or whether it takes 3-4 days, you're still putting that much steroids into your body. Like, it's still happening. You're still doubling, tripling, maybe quadrupling the amount of androgens your body could make naturally. That's still happening, even with the longer esters. So don't be afraid to take advantage of it that way. And again, once you get home, jump right into PCT. Like, don't even question it. You got to be on PCT a good 2-3 months of just taking natural PCT products. HCgenerate.com, guys. Check out my product. And that's it, Steve. Just wanted to give guys a good, easy way to learn how to use these longer esters to their benefit. And I think we've all been there, Steve. You travel to the Dominican Republic sometimes. I think we all step out of the country here and there. Perfect timing to put those long esters to work, for sure, guys. Nice, cheap, clean, human-grade steroids, and you could pump it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can run blood work, and you can see the truth on this topic. Like, if you're running testosterone cypionate, let's say you're running 250 milligrams twice a week of testosterone cypionate. You test your blood work after a week. Your blood work isn't going to be where it needs to be for 500 milligrams a week. 500 milligrams a week of testosterone should put your total testosterone levels over 3,500 nanograms per deciliter, ng by dl. And if you run blood work after a week, after say 2 injections, it's not going to be over 3,500 yet. It doesn't magically just go over 3,500. So that's my point. You're not going to know if your gear is legit testing it after a week. You've got to wait about 5 weeks, then test it. So after 5 weeks, your testosterone level should be, if you injected on a correct schedule twice a week, that's 10 injections in 5 weeks. If you're doing two a week. So that would put your blood work where it needs to be, near peak levels. It should be over 3,500 nanograms per deciliter. But if you test only after 2 injections, after a week, it's not going to be 3,500. So to say that you get the same results after a week as you would after 5 weeks doesn't make any sense. There's going to be more hormones in your system after 5 weeks. There's not going to be as much hormones in your system yet after just a week or two. So I think that's the crux of my my answer here. So, and Rick, you agree with that or disagree? Does that make more sense though, the way I'm saying it?
Well, the part that I don't subscribe to, because I'm a low dose guy. Like I'm a good responder at low dosing, is that you really need like a ton of steroids in your system to get any results. I'm just giving you an example. I know what you're saying, but the reason why I don't like the reason why I could agree with what you're saying, but I also don't think is that detrimental, is because once you're doubling, tripling what your body can naturally make, you're already way ahead of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you can't and you shouldn't double or triple the amount of hormones your body makes for too long, or then you're going to have a shit ton of issues. We talked about this, Steve, with guys are on too high of a TRT dose. So that's kind of where I'm saying, like, I see.
So let me explain it this way, though. Then. Let's say you got low testosterone levels. Your testosterone levels are at 100, okay? And you go to a doctor, he prescribes you TRT. You go on the TRT at 100 milligrams a week. You got 100 milligrams of testosterone a week, should put your blood work. Your blood work is at 100, right? Nanograms per deciliter. So doing 100 milligrams a week should put your blood work at around 500-600 nanograms per deciliter. So you do your first TRT injection. Okay, you do 100 milligrams, first TRT injection. You're telling me the next day you go in to get blood work, your blood work is going to go from 100 nanograms per deciliter to 600 nanograms per deciliter. No, it's not. It's going to take 4 or 5 weeks for your blood work to get up to 500-600 number, because it's going to take time for that steroid to peak in your system to build up. So if I explain it like that, then I think it makes more sense, versus what you're saying. So, but I get where you're coming from. If we're talking to 500 or 1,000 milligrams a week, then yeah, you're going to have more in your system. If you slam 250 milligrams of DECA or testosterone today, you're going to have more hormones in your system than your body is naturally producing. So you would get an effect quickly. So I get, so when you say it like that, I get exactly where you're coming from. But the dangerous part though of thinking like that is when you come off, because guys don't understand when you come off, there's going to be a crash if you don't run a post-cycle therapy, because you come off and after 4 weeks, you're like, oh, I feel great. I don't need a PCT. And then the hormones start going, getting low in your system. And that's where the danger part is when you.
That's what the trade-off is on doing a run like that, is when you get back home, like the day after, 2 days after your last shot, just a couple of days, you want to get on PCT right away, because at that point now you want your natural production to help the long esters you injected. Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds like a little crazy idea, but it's something I developed over the years, doing small little 2-week to a 4 or 5 week trips, and realizing like, hey man, it's a good opportunity to get some growth. Muscle is real cheap out of the country because it's just not as expensive and it's not as risky to get. So I just found myself a good way to do those little cycles and get some real growth, get some actual progress going in those few weeks. It's just an idea for guys out there. I'm sure many guys will find themselves in the situation I'm describing, and now will be able to better take advantage of it. And the secret, right? The big secret of this is, guys, is those tiny injections every day to every other day, creating that new depot every day, every other day. You don't want to shoot too much in one shot. You want to really just slowly create those depots over time, and then your upswing as well as your downswing will be really smooth. Compared to injecting that much in 1 or 2 shots, where you're going to have a couple of peaks and some serious drops. You just every day, small amounts of those long esters, and I mean it's worked for me. It's worked for me.
All right, so that was a good one. That was a good discussion for sure. The next one we're talking about is what would happen if I ran 10 milligrams only of VAR as a male. So let me have you talk about this one first, Rick, because you've run, I think when you were overseas, you told me you ran just an oral or something at a low dose, but I'm not sure if I remember correctly.
I did an oral only cycle, Anavar, and did about 50 mgs per day. So yeah, I mean, I like Anavar. As far as doing 10 milligrams per day, that's a good question. You want me to get on this one first, or you want to go first, Steve? You let me know.
Yeah, hit it first.
It depends on who you are, man, and what level you're at and what you're looking for. For example, you take any of the, just to give you some example, any of the top UFC fighters or any of the top sprinters or runners, you give them 10 mgs of Anavar per day, that puts them well over their natural production of testosterone. I mean, these guys could go from a bronze to a gold. They could go from a silver to a world record. If you've worked and trained your body out enough to where you've exceeded your natural limitations, you drop a little tiny bit of Anavar, you drop those 10 milligrams of Anavar, you're going to get some serious growth, some serious results that you're going to notice and are going to be very apparent to you, especially if you're not big on the sauce. However, if you're a big guy already, huge on the sauce, taking a bunch of stuff, You probably have, 20, 30 pounds of muscle on you that are only held on there and stay on because of TRT dosing of steroids, where you can't come off or you start melting down. Like a lot of these kind of really big, heavy guys do. Then you're not going to feel shit with those 10 milligrams of Anavar. You're just not. Same thing if you're like a newbie, you've been training for a couple of years and you're not even really about the lifestyle. You're going to take 10 milligrams of Anavar, 2 or 3 weeks will go by. You've gotten some results, but probably not enough. You don't have the experience and the training and diet to take the full advantage of the steroid. Your body is not close to its genetic limit to even really fully take advantage of it. You might feel like you're not doing anything, or you got bunk stuff. It depends who you are, what level of fitness you're at. If you're one of these guys that's just pushing themselves, grinding it for years, and just drops a little bit of steroids here and there, a little SARM here and there, just for pushing performance, you're going to notice those 10 milligrams of Anavar doing something. If you're one of these newbies or one of these really vets, that newbie that you're not even close to, you're not even taking sets to failure every day that you go in the gym. You haven't killed the hunger. You still have problems with your eating. You're just not going to notice anything out of those 10 milligrams. You're going to think it's nothing. And same thing with the big guy. Big guy, some guys, look, once you get a certain size, you got to stay on the steroids. I'd love for somebody to come on here and tell us we're wrong about that and prove us wrong. Once you get to a certain size, to a certain amount of muscle, your natural production will just be unable to keep it. You have to stay on something. Now, that size is different for everyone. That's different for everyone. Genetics has a lot to do with it. It's different for all of us. But it depends if you've made that trade-off and how much now you need per week. You might be a big guy. You might need to baseline with 30 milligrams of any steroid every day for the rest of your life, just to keep up, just to stay big. So it all depends on who you are and what level you're at, in my opinion. What do you think, Steve?
So you gotta remember, see, this is a question we get a lot on the forums and people don't understand this. So listen very closely to what I'm going to say, and it's going to save you a lot of problems in the future, guys. And that's very, very simple. We take these anabolic steroids at PED levels, performance enhancing levels. Okay. We don't take these compounds at therapeutic levels. So whatever the therapeutic dosage of Anavar is, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's 2 milligrams a day for a male. I don't even know. It doesn't really matter. But we're not taking these PEDs for therapeutic purposes. It would be just like running a testosterone cycle. Would you run a testosterone cycle at 100 milligrams a week? No, that's a TRT dose. That's a therapeutic dose. Okay. That's not going to do anything for you. That's not going to do anything for you unless you were like low to begin with and you're not producing testosterone. But like if you're producing testosterone on a regular level and you're going to shut yourself down to only give yourself 100 milligrams of testosterone, doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing with Anavar. You're going to shut yourself down, give you liver side effects and these other side effects that come with anabolic steroid use, and you're only going to put back in 10 milligrams of hormone. Doesn't make any sense. So you have to run what we do. We don't run therapeutic dosages of these hormones. We run 5, 10 times the therapeutic dosages or 20 times the therapeutic dosages, depending on how strong the compound is. So with Anavar, really as a male, you got to run at least 30, 40 milligrams a day if you want to get anything out of it, whether that's solo or as part of a stack. So 10 milligrams, is just like, it's just a therapeutic dose. It's something, it's not even worth it. It's just a waste of money, frankly. Because Anavar is expensive enough. So I think it's just a waste of money. So I hope that makes sense. To people. Remember, we're running these because we are athletes, we're bodybuilders, we're power lifters, we're gym rats. We want to push our bodies, right? So running a therapeutic dose of an anabolic steroid doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? So I hope that makes sense. And
I just want to add
know,
something, buddy. Just want to add something to that. And on the flip side, not just to contradict Steve, but to kind of put in perspective for guys out there listening. On the flip side, you get a 55-year-old, 60-year-old that gets in contact with a TRT clinic. He's never had TRT in his life. And he gets a script for Anavar at 10 mgs per day, which sometimes you can just get if you have muscle pain and you talk to your TRT doctor about it and you have muscle pain, muscle weakness, you still like to work out, but your muscles hurt for days after, and you can't lift as much weight as you used to, and you're just not feeling good. And maybe when they do blood tests, your sex hormone binding globulin is kind of high and your free test is low. And you might just get 10 mgs of Anavar a day with maybe 100 mgs of testosterone cypionate every week or every 10 days. That's enough to change someone's life. Just the 10 milligrams of Anavar alone for an old man in his 60s, it's enough to get that old guy out of his chair and doing some more activities. It's enough to give him an additional 2, 3, 4 hours a day of energy, of just high voltage energy that he probably didn't have before. So yeah, I mean, it depends on the guy, depends on who you are. 10 milligrams of Anavar could be double what your body can make naturally in testosterone. And obviously there's suppression that'll happen down the line. And eventually, if you stay on that too long, you'll suppress your own natural production. So you only have the Anavar, blah, blah. I mean, there's definitely a long argument to make about that. But depending on who you are, those 10 mgs could be life-changing.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned when I mentioned that, I said like it makes a difference. Therapeutic dose, if you run a therapeutic dose of any hormone and it hits you hard, then that means that you've got hormone issues. You're not producing hormones naturally the way you should. So
if you need it, if you need it for sure, because if you're a young
I
man,
don't think 10 milligrams of Anavar would even be a therapeutic dose. I think if let's say you had low T and you just went on 10 milligrams of Anavar, I'm not sure he would do anything because it's not androgenic enough anyway. So you wouldn't get any of those androgenic.
It frees up. It'll increase free test. It'll increase free test.
Yeah.
It'll increase free test. It's kind of when you go to TRT clinic and you want an Anavar script, high numbers in sex hormone binding globulin are kind of like the way that you should be able to get it. That along with maybe some symptoms of muscle weakness and bone pain, deep bone pain after training. If you get a combination of those two, you're surely getting a script for Anavar because it's a some medication way to lower sex hormone binding globulin and increase free test some.
Next one we're going to talk about is how to bail a young guy out of using steroids. And what this means is this guy, 21 years old, 22 years old area, he used steroids. He knows he messed up. He listened to a friend. We hear the story a lot. And now he wants to know what he needs to do and what will happen to him because he's worried about his reproductive system. So I'm going to let you have first crack at this one, Rick, because you used steroids at a young age. What advice would you give this guy? How did you bail your own self out when you were younger?
I just had to go through the process and see what was up, in my case. I mean, in my case, I was a very independent kid. I've been buying my own soap and deodorant since I was 16, 17. So I was very independent. So my parents couldn't have told me much of anything at my age. I was incredibly independent little man for my age. But if you got that kid at home and you're afraid he's going to try the sauce, I mean, it's hard. On the one hand, I think if he became a fan of our podcast and he listened enough, he would hear us say over and over again how fucking with your endocrine system for some static look may not be worth it. How you might fuck things up, mess up your numbers, and never be able to get them back. And, these are two guys that have been doing it and experimenting with these drugs for years. Maybe, see, that's the problem. If he's really hell set on doing steroids, if he listens to the podcast, he might learn how to do it safely and how to do it better. Or he might decide that maybe steroids just aren't for him. Once he hears us say over and over again in every podcast, we always talk about how dangerous it is to mess with your endocrine system, how these are feedback loops that scientists, doctors don't even fully understand 100%. When we're discovering new things about our endocrine system every year, every couple of years, there's just new data, new studies being published in medical journals that give us a better understanding of the endocrine system. So how much more don't we know? How much more do we not understand? It has a lot to do with who the guy is, what his reasons for doing it. Is he trying to fill some void? Is he trying, what are his reasons for doing it? You know, is he lacking something in his life? Does he think is going to make him a pro athlete? You know, any of these things, they need to be identified. Look, if you got a kid who might have the ability, who might be able to make it to the pros, your money would be better invested into getting him a sports psychologist that helps him laser focus on performance. That'll go a much longer way than shooting him with steroids and getting him or stronger or faster. The game, you gotta have game IQ to be a top level player. Game IQ, you gotta have real IQ for this. And you're not gonna find that in a needle. So that's kind of like the only thing I could say, man. Is just talk to your guy, figure out why he's doing it, and attack his reason for doing it, not so much the steroids, because you're not gonna win trying to talk somebody out of steroids by talking about the bad things that could happen with steroids. It's usually not a good point because, you know, we do all kinds of damage to ourselves with all kinds of GMOs and fumes in the air and plastic fucking bottles we microwave and freeze and then drink out of. Like, we're doing so many other things that we don't yet understand. That's hard to tell someone, hey, steroids are going to hurt you. But if maybe you figure out why he's doing it, what his reason for doing it is, and what his reason for it is. See, my parents couldn't have kept me away from the steroid needle because I've always liked science, biology. I just in my heart, it's just something that I've always been very interested in, and I just had to know and see how different my body could get with these compounds. So when I was a young man, I'd made my decision that I was going to use these compounds. I'd say about 3, 4, maybe 5 years before I got my hands on them. I was reading articles by Dan Duchesne, Bill Phillips. I was reading books on steroids years before I started using them. And by the time I made the decision to use them, I mean, there was just no talking me out of it. I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see what these compounds could do to me, like how it would. Just the curiosity of what I would feel and what I would go through is just completely. I mean, I had to do it, but that's just kind of me, you know. I like experimenting on myself and seeing how my body is different with the different compounds I've taken through the years. He might just have issues with self-image. He might just have depression. He might just have, he might just suck at a sport, just not be that great. And thinking steroids can fix it, which when steroids don't fix it, they'll bring him, they'll cause him even more depression and feel even worse. And that's the problem with steroid use is when you use steroids for the wrong reasons, when you think it's going to add something to your life, when you think it's going to fill some void, when you think it's going to bring her back, if you look more ripped, when you focus on these things, then you use the steroids and they don't do that. They don't do any of those big things you thought they were going to do. It's just going to make you more miserable. It's just going to make you a real sad, miserable person. And you've already gone as far as using steroids, and that didn't fix the problem. Now what? And that's when you start to get into issues. So just whenever you know of someone that's about to or thinking about or wants to use steroids, attack the reason, never the person or the steroids, but attack the reason why. That's the place to find it.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate when someone comes on the forum and they're a young person and people start jumping down their throat. That type of mentality is bullshit. Like you hear that a lot. Like the older generation always puts down the younger generation. Always. There's an old um, quote from a Roman emperor. This was from like 100 BC or something, or 180, where he put down the younger generation. He said the younger generation is crap, blah, blah, blah. It's a famous quote. So always, I mean, and Rick, when you get older too, you're gonna probably be the same way toward the younger generation too. You're gonna say, "Oh, younger generation, they suck," blah blah blah. And when we were younger, we heard it from the older guys, and when we get older, we're gonna be bitching about something. Like older people now, they're bitching about young people. Oh, they're all in video games and stuff, and it's just like, whose fault is that? It wasn't their generation that invented video games. Video games were invented in the 80s. Nintendo first came out 85. I remember when it first came out. I did nothing but play my Nintendo. I got it for Christmas back in, I think, 85, 86 is when I got it. I did nothing but play my Nintendo for like 2 months. I was so addicted to it. So everybody's gonna complain. So you should never have them. That's why I like John Meadows, who passed away. John Meadows would always say, that there's no difference between younger generation, older generation. They work just as hard. They're just as intelligent, if not more intelligent. They have more access to information. When I was a teenager, the only access I had to information was bodybuilding magazines, which were crap, just bro science. And I'd have to go to the library and check out books. There was one little section in the library for weightlifting. That was the only information I had. If you wanted steroid information, not going to happen. You're not going to find that in any book. Okay. So we have so much more access to information. These podcasts did not exist in those days. So I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're a younger guy. You made a mistake. You listened to the wrong person. You got on steroids at 21, 22. It's younger than you should have. So the first step I always tell people is stop freaking out. That's the first step, because if you freak out, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to make the situation worse. So don't freak out. Don't be negative. Don't panic. Everything's going to be okay. Have a positive mindset. The number one thing you have to watch out for, and I've seen younger guys have organ issues because your organs are still really immature. But once you're 21, 22, that's not really the case anymore. I've seen younger, really, really younger guys run these pro hormones and get jaundice. They have yellow eyes. It's really, really bad because their livers aren't developed yet. Their organs aren't developed yet the way they should. So they're really prone to having liver issues. That's why young people shouldn't be drinking alcohol, for example. An 8-year-old shouldn't be drinking alcohol, okay? There's a reason an 8-year-old shouldn't drink alcohol. It could fuck up your liver pretty bad at that age compared to a 30-year-old. But at 21, 22, really the damage that you're creating is your reproductive system. And that's something that can be confirmed with blood work. So if you want to argue with me and say, oh, that's bullshit, it's fine if you run blood work, everything's gonna be okay. No, run blood work and you'll see your LH levels are gonna tank, your FSH are gonna tank. Your hormones are gonna get messed up. Okay, your estrogen is gonna be all over the place. So it does mess with your hormones. It can affect your sex drive, it can affect your erection health. A lot of this stuff gets thrown off. Your hormones get thrown off. You get skin issues like acne. That's a common issue with younger guys because your hormones are already fluctuating, and now you're fluctuating them even more. So yeah, you're going to be more prone to acne issues. Gynecomastia, because your estrogen levels get all out of whack. Now you get gynecomastia issues, and you don't know what hit you. You don't know what hit you until it's too late, and then now you're gonna have to get surgery to get that taken care of, right? So these are the main issues that younger guys need to watch out for. So what do you do if you ran steroids? Step one, I mentioned it. You calm your ass down and relax. Just chill. All right. Educate yourself a little bit. Listen to this podcast. Read on forums. Educate yourself on what you did to yourself. That's step one. Step two is going to be coming off the hormones. Okay. Don't right the wrong by going back on steroids because you think, you know what, let me go back on steroids and my body will fix itself if I just go on steroids. Or if I just, you know what, you're one of those people that procrastinate on things. You're just like, let me put this to the side. Let me put this to the side and just, it'll go away. It'll go away over time. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to hop back on the steroids and worry about it down the line. That's that type of mentality will make you a very unsuccessful person at anything you do in life. So you have to be thinking of the intermediate and long term as well. So blood work is crucial. Come off the hormones, run a PCT, a correct PCT. There's a lot of bad PCTs out there that fuck people up even more. I see a lot of people recommend ACG and PCT. Huge mistake. ACG is a hormone. It's a hormone. It mimics LH in the body. So it will suppress your pituitary glands. It will delay recovery when you go on it. You'll feel good on ACG for the most part. You'll feel good. Your balls will plump up. You think you're recovering. You're not. You're just sending yourself back. It's fool's gold. So there's a lot of bad information out there. If you run the wrong PCT, you can fuck yourself up more. So run the right PCT. Check out our forums, Perfect PCT. Run that. All right. That's a good PCT. And then blood work. You need to be running the blood work. Okay. I hope you got pre-cycle blood work. You likely did not. Okay. I'm not going to put people down for not running pre-cycle blood work because most people don't. 95% of people don't run pre-cycle blood work. I know this because I have people come to me all the time for help with their blood work, and they did not run pre-cycle blood work. That's how it is. But it's okay. Run the blood work now. Run the blood work after you come off the hormones and see where you're at. And that can at least give you some peace of mind. And then that's really all you could do, guys, and just give it time. Another solution in herbals. Fedosia, Tribulus, the product that Rick sells on N2BM called N2 Generate. That's got a lot of herbals in it. A lot of those Fedosia, and those don't interfere with your recovery process, but those will make you feel good, and those will kind of push your body along in PCT to make you feel good. So you can get a couple of bottles of that and just run it 5 caps a day and just run it until the bottles are empty. That will get you through the rough patch. But guys, I mean, the worst thing you could do is just go back on steroids and just put it under the rug, because if you do that, you're just going to set yourself back. Anything else you want to add?
It's a good addition to the conversation, bro. That was pretty good.
All right, so the next one we're going to do is the last one, and I'll let you have first crack at this one, Rick. What does it feel like to use 3 grams plus of gear a week?
It doesn't feel that much different than using 1 gram of gear a week, to be honest with you guys. You will find some more side effects and the need for more auxiliaries. So if you're taking 3 grams and some of that is dianabol, you're definitely going to experience some bloat unless you use aromacin. Definitely going to experience some joint stiffness, and you're going to get shin splints or really hard back spasms. If you're using Trenbolone and you pump in 5, 6, 7, 800 milligrams of Trenbolone inside of those 3 grams, obviously you're going to have trouble sleeping, night sweats. You're going to have trouble reaching orgasm. You're going to have some of these side effects are going to be more amplified, easier to notice when you're on the higher amounts. But you're not going to walk around any stronger or that much even bigger, really, to be honest with you. If you're doing 3 grams because you're already huge and you need that much to grow, different story. You'll feel like a completely different man on those 3 grams than you will on maintenance doses. But if you're like a new jack who probably shouldn't be doing over 1 gram and you just go and pump 3, maybe you'll see a few extra pounds in muscle gain at the end of your cycle. Maybe if you're cutting, if you run a really strict diet, maybe you'll see some muscle gains a little bit, maybe. But at the end of the day, it doesn't even feel that much different, guys. It doesn't. I've been there like my third, fourth week shooting 3 grams of juice, mix of veterinarian and human grade back in the early 2000s. Didn't feel that much different, guys. It does. It's not like an everyday. It's not like you wake up and you stretch out and then you say, "Oh, my muscles feel like I got 3 grams of testosterone." No, it doesn't even feel like that. Side effects, yeah. Growth, man. When I started using the steroids, I guess I was so young that 1,000 milligrams were going to do for me what 3 could have done. Maybe if I was a much bigger guy before I stepped up to 3 grams, it might have been a different story. But it doesn't feel that much different, at least beneficial. The only thing is the side effects. And look, when it comes to strength, right? When it comes to strength, if you run a 1 gram a week cycle, let's say you're doing 400 or 500 testosterone, 1 to 200 trenbolone, some, equipoise, whatever, you're gonna get stronger. Your bench is gonna go up. You're not gonna be able to bench an extra 50 pounds because you did 3 grams. You're just not. Maybe if you did 3 grams versus doing a gram, maybe 4 or 5 weeks into the cycle, with the 3 grams, you'd be able to put an extra dime on outside of each weight, an extra 20 pounds, maybe, if that. But you're just not, you're definitely not going to see it off of one cycle, guys. Maybe if you always shot 3 grams over time, over years, doing 3 gram cycles might give you more growth and better development than if you did 1 gram cycles, maybe, along with more side effects, obviously. But that's in the marathon of things. That's in the 3 to 5 year range of doing a couple cycles a year. In that one solitary cycle, you're just not going to notice much of anything, dude. Like, I've been there. As I saw this question coming up today, I remember shooting on my sauce. And then 2 or 3 days later being like, am I not supposed to feel like bigger? Like, I just shot 3 grams yesterday. Like, I just shot 4 amps of sustanon yesterday with almost half a jug of equipoise, with Deca, with some homebrew Phenoplix H that I've been injecting every other day, with like I just shot all of this. Shouldn't I fucking feel like should I be turning green right now? Huge. It doesn't happen that way, guys. It does not fucking happen that way. Definitely not for guys in the earlier stages of development. You send me a Mr. Olympia competitor who's got all this musculature, huge, and he might see a night and day difference from doing 1 gram than from doing 3. That guy might. And he might notice it, and he might have, and when he's doing his concentration exercises, he's got that muscle mind connection. He's able to tell that his muscle has more strength, the difference between 3 grams to 1 gram. That guy might be able to tell you he's really feeling or seeing something different. But most regular guys out there, you're not going to notice shit, dude. To be honest with you, he's going to waste a lot of money. What do you think, Steve?
I've never run very much steroids in my life. The most I've ever run was about, probably with injectables, about 900 milligrams, and then I ran an oral with it. So I guess that counts as like 1.5 grams, maybe, because if you kind of
about it. If you run a 40 milligram, 50 milligram oral in a week, that's 350 mg.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Like, the first couple cycles you run, it's going to hit you hard because you're not used to the androgens. So I think, though, as the more you get used to it, the more it's going to change. So I think initially there's a good chance that if you were just to like go from running no steroids ever in your life to just hopping on like 3 grams, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, across the board. But if you're like used to running steroids, let's say you kind of started out, your first cycle was 500 milligrams, and your second cycle was 750, then your third was 1,000, and you kept inching your way up. And then you hit, down the line, maybe like, 4 or 5 years later, after you've experienced steroids. Then you just throw 3 grams because you want to compete at a regional show or something, and you want to be the big man on the block. It's I think the side effects are going to eat you alive in that situation. Rick kind of went through the side effects, but I think the main side effects just depends on what you're running. You gotta like watch out for the androgenic side effects. You gotta watch out for the estrogenic side effects, as Rick mentioned. But I think also the lethargy is gonna really suck. Like you're gonna feel like crap all day. You're just not gonna feel good. And then when you go to work out, your workouts are gonna be great, but you're just gonna like have, probably during your workouts you'll have energy. You get your brain, you get the adrenaline going and all that stuff. So, but then like afterwards, you're just gonna be tired and you're gonna be not wanting to do anything. And your work's gonna suffer. Your sleep is gonna suffer. So it almost becomes counterproductive because now you can't sleep well at night. So I don't think it's worth it. I think a lot of these guys that have run like a lot of gear, like 3 grams and stuff, they were running underdose stuff. So really 3 grams of underdose gear is like 1,000 of properly dosed, So I think it kind of like evens itself out doing it that way. But, we have access to much better gear. I think there was like a period of time where a lot of underdose gear was going around, and a lot of these guys online and stuff were saying how they were running all these steroids, and it just makes you wonder, were they running legit steroids? So I mean that's what I think. Like what else you got to add to this, Rick?
It's a good topic we just put out. Yeah, I mean, I just don't. It's not like guys think. It's not like you think. There are times during a big cycle like that you're going to be asking yourself, like, am I really on something? Like, yeah, I feel the pump. Yeah, I feel everything. I feel my muscles, how they work. I feel my skin. I get some stretch marks in my skin from just flexing after a workout. Like, yeah, you'll get that, but at 3 grams is not that much more than a gram. Not for most of us guys that are not already carrying around 20, 30, 40 pounds of additional muscle that we couldn't have without steroids. Not for regular guys who are trying to look good with their shirt off. You're going to pump all that sauce and you're just, you'd get further along if you just were more strict with your diet and with your training. If you push your training past to these sticky points of pain and you push through to the other side of that pain, and if you really eat, meaning if you're trying to bulk, you force feed until your stomach hurts. You do that a couple of times a day, a few times a day. Or if you're trying to cut, you cut down, cut carbs, cut down, time restrict feed. You do those things better on those, your results are going to be much better than just adding more steroids. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's just, and look at the world-class guys.
It's not your opinion. That's the facts.
Yeah. And
because so many people use steroids.
Yeah,
look at all these people that run all these steroids in your typical franchise gym in suburban America. Okay. Everyone is on steroids. Everybody. Why? Because they can afford it. I mean, they're all look at what they're driving. Look at these people in your gym, what they drive. They drive, nice ass cars. You got Lexus, BMWs, Mercedes. What else? Those expensive Toyotas. They got nice ass new cars. You think they can't afford a couple $100 for a steroid cycle? That's like chump change for them. $200, is nothing.
Yeah, the price of steroids is cheaper today than it's ever been, ever. It's incredible.
Yeah, and people make more money today than they did back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, $200 is a lot of money. Now, $200. I mean, people make that. You can make $200 now standing on the side of the road with a cardboard, holding up a cardboard thing and looking, asking for money. You can make $200 nowadays like that. You can make $200 going on OnlyFans, your favorite website, Rick, and setting up an account there. So I mean, $200 is nothing. So you think these guys aren't on steroids? They're all on fucking steroids. They're all they use, and they look like shit. Your typical gym rat in a franchise gym looks like shit. Do they not? They don't look like they even work out, and they're there every fucking day and they're using steroids. So it's not an opinion, Rick. It's the facts. That's steroid use is not magic. There's a lot of different factors of steroid use. But the good thing about weight training is no matter what your genetics are, you can always improve at it. So that's the nice thing about it. And at the end of the day, I'm not trying to give people a hard time, but a lot of people, they go to the gym just to get out of the house. That's like their safe space. That's their place to go. Put the headphones in their ears, leave your phone in the car, and just be in your own world and just let off steam, all the steam of your day and your boss fucking with you.
Baby batter. The baby batters, you like to say.
Yeah, you got to let the baby batter out, especially if you're single, you don't have a warm body to come home to. So that's the way that you let the baby batter out. Otherwise, you're just gonna go crazy. So anyway, that's we're kind of getting off on a tangent on that. But the bottom line is, guys, I'd rather you have your diet on point, your training on point, your conditioning on point, and know how to do all this shit. Know how to diet, know how to train, know how to eat, all this stuff, and be consistent at it, and run 500 milligrams a week total of steroids, then run 3 grams of steroids a week, 10 times that amount. So, and it's true. It's not an opinion. It's just the facts. And we see it all the time. How many people on the forum, they come on and they do a log and then they just disappear. Halfway through the cycle, they just quit because they realize, you know what? Steroids really aren't magic. They're not doing what I wanted them to do.
So guys, before we close the podcast today, I just want to tell you guys about a new product in my store. There are a few. The one I'm going to feature today is called N2 Transoderm. When you go to my store, go to Muscle Builders. You'll see it. It's a cream you put on your shoulders, and it's a precursor to more anabolic hormones. You put it on your shoulders. Your shoulders is where the concentration of enzymes that we need to turn this prohormone into a full-on out steroid, that's where they live. It's called N2 Transoderm. It's completely 100% legal product. I can sell it over the counter, no problem. Once you apply it to your skin, to your upper shoulders, you're going to get a conversion to more androgenic hormones. The difference between N2 Transoderm and something like HC Generate is HC Generate, N2 Generate is great at helping your own production pick up. It'll max out whatever your own testes can produce. In the case of N2 Transoderm, you're adding additional hormones to your body that your body doesn't have to make. You're adding exogenous prohormones that will convert into more androgenic hormones. Now, there are some products out there in the market that promise to be prohormones that you take orally. Those are pretty cool. But when you take some of these compounds orally, you don't know what's going to happen to them and what enzymes are going to come in contact with them. First, the liver is going to get rid of a bunch of it. And then you don't have a choice on what enzymes come in contact with the compound. And so you might get some conversions that are undesired. You might get conversions to estrogenic hormones or hormones that make you restore fat. The way that I design my product, when you put the prohormone on your shoulders, when you put these compounds on your shoulders, the first pass into your body is through that skin. Remember, the shoulders and the upper back is where we get a lot of that acne, because a lot of these enzymes are in there turning steroids into more androgenic steroids, into more androgenic conversions. And so that's where you place it. It's called N2 Transoderm. It's an incredible product. It's the first muscle builder I've released in a long time. It's the first product that brings exogenous hormones, exogenous androgenic potential into your body. No longer just relying on your testicles to produce. How to use the product? You could use it during your steroid cycle. You could use it with SARMs. It could be your new testosterone base when you use SARMs. It's a great product. Give it a shot. N2 Transoderm. Go to needtobuildmuscle.com. Look under Muscle Builders, or go to N2 Transoderm.com. I'll link it in the description of this podcast. It's a great product, guys. Please check it out from my stores. It's the most powerful hormonal product I've put out in a good while, you know. And to generate, yes, incredible products to help you recover. Great for PCT, for libido, all that stuff. This product is going to add anabolic, androgenic numbers, potential to your body, exogenous anabolic androgenic activity to your body, more than your body could produce naturally. And we put the product in right through the concentration of enzymes that are going to do what we want it to do, guys. So please check it out. It's a great product. I know you're going to love it.
Awesome. We look forward to that one, guys. Appreciate you guys sending in the comments. Episode 449. We're almost to 450. We're almost to 500. The train is stopping. They're trying to silence us out there. They don't want us to say the truth out there. But we're going to keep it going, guys. We are going to keep it going as long as possible. All right. So for Stevesmi and the Rickster, Ricky V Rock, talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.